And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. A University of British Columbia study found that teenagers aged 16 to 19 who worked summer jobs had greater future earnings and experienced higher job satisfaction than those who took the summers off. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 1990.
They took the video pictures themselves, a bunch of young adults out on a fun outing to the Fulton River Fish Hatchery. But it's more than just having fun. The teenagers are also here to learn about interrelationships between humanity and our environment, how we sometimes hurt nature, and how we sometimes try to help it. Later, these young people will try to help the environment, and by doing so, will hopefully benefit themselves. The kids all belong to the Environment Youth Corps, a provincial government program started last summer designed to provide BC youth with seasonal employment in environment-related areas, and at the same time, educate them about the importance of a healthy environment.
There's three things we would like to see come out of the program. We'd like to see some work get done, for one thing. We don't want it to be a make-work program. We'd like to see something useful done in the community where the crew is working. A lot of young people these days, I think, are having a bit of a problem getting their first job. And one of the other things we'd like to see come out of this program is give them a bit of training and job experience so that they'll find it a little bit easier the next time they get a job. And the third thing is to kind of raise the environmental awareness of the people that are on the crew and hopefully the community that they're working in as well.
This past summer, there were 21 different Youth Corps groups working between Prince George and Prince Rupert. The work they did was as varied as the environment. Here a team is collecting broodstock for fish enhancement work at a terrace area hatchery. Other times, the teenagers learned how to run a power saw in preparation for building hiking and ski trails or for constructing campsites. Some crews helped out by trapping and then moving problem bears, or by cleaning up garbage from along popular sport fishing beaches, or maybe even catching sport fish and tagging, then releasing them to help biologists learn more about the migratory patterns of the fish.
The fish's eyeball right there. At this stage, that's just about ready to hatch.
And then there was work at fish hatcheries to improve angling opportunities in the years to come. Some of the teams undertook research work, doing habitat surveys, or practical work, pulling problem beaver dams. And all of the kids attended seminars to hear what the experts have to say about environmental protection and enhancement. Between the lectures and the field work, the participants say they learned a lot during their time with the Youth Corps.
Fish enhancement, stream surveys, bear trapping, basket trapping, all kinds of stuff to do with the environment, how to clean up the environment, the damage that logging has done to the environment and streams and our wildlife, and doing fish hatchery work around here.
So do you think it's enhanced your awareness of the environment?
Yeah, I learned quite a bit about how the environment has been screwed up from logging and stuff like that. So I've learned quite a bit from the job.
I think a lot of the things that we have done are just now being seen, you know, and I think when this is all calculated at the end of the year with the good that the Youth Corps has done, not only, like I say, for the communities, but for the people involved, I think it's one of the best things that's come down the road so far, as far as employing young people and encouraging students and one thing and another to not only stay with their education, but hopefully stay in the environmental end of things.
Ron Young supervised 2 different Environment Youth Corps groups in the Terrace area. Over the years, he's been involved in a number of government-sponsored initiatives involving young people. He thinks the Environment Youth Corps is one of the best.
The whole world is, waking up a little bit to what's going on around them, and if we don't, we're going to be in trouble. I think this is a very important first step to try to arouse public awareness. Hopefully we've, been able to do that. I think it's money well spent, every cent of it. I don't think it was a make-work project at all. We did some very valuable things. We, did more. Most of the project sponsors that I've talked to went the extra yard. We did more than what was actually there to do, just because it was there to do it.
The government budgeted $11 million for Youth Corps activities last year. There were about 40 different crews doing work around the province. They worked anywhere between 8 weeks to 5 months and received $7 an hour for their efforts. But there's more value to the program than just receiving a regular paycheck and doing constructive environmental work. There are also the less tangible benefits, like building confidence and self-esteem.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Poaching is the illegal collection or killing of fish, wildlife, or native plants. Some common examples include taking more fish and game than the law allows, hunting or fishing in an enclosed area, or using prohibited gear or equipment. But before we bring you that archival story, let us pick up where we left off with the Youth Corps.
For one thing, the kids that I've had this year have been a really good bunch of people. Morale was high, lots of motivation. We had a fairly adventuresome summer. We did a lot of different things and a lot of things that were very interesting, And I've noticed a lot of changes in the kids since they started as far as self-confidence and pride in their work. And, they are a good bunch and they're proud of what they do and they do it well.
Kids really enjoy this?
Yeah, they really do. Again, the attendance rate proves that. Bad weather, sometimes pretty rough conditions, sometimes semi-dangerous conditions, but everybody's there. When you need them, they're all there in a clutch. A really good bunch of kids. Young people.
It keeps them off the streets, too.
Yeah, for sure. We've got some fairly streetwise people on our crew, and these same guys are now out fishing on the weekends, taking an interest in a little more around them than just the streets and the pool halls. And if nothing else, that's been well worth the time and effort.
But it's not only the supervisors who can see the value of the Environment Youth Corps, so too can the workers.
Oh yeah, it helps the public know what's going on. Yeah.
Out in the environment, you mean?
Yeah.
Like what sort of things are going on, do you think?
Well, how we're enhancing the streams with coho and chum and what value the streams have.
Did you know that before you did this?
No, never knew nothing about it. Yeah.
So what do you think? Is it a worthwhile project?
Oh yeah, it is.
1989 was the first year for the Environment Youth Corps in BC. It's not certain whether the program will be funded again this year, but almost everyone associated with the Corps hopes it is. They say it does a lot of good in terms of environmental enhancement work and job training for the participants, and especially for the program's success in building character and positive attitudes among the youth.
One girl told me she learned that she could do it, like she can get out there and work. Another young fellow said he learned that he could think for himself and solve his own problems out there. He didn't have to have someone tell him how to do it. I had a young fellow that told me he never realized that, there were some problems in the environment, that, some logging practices were affecting the fisheries, and that was something he learned. I think one of the really important things that I hear from a lot of the crews, though, is that they've learned to work together as a team, and they've learned what it's like to go to work, and that's a useful skill.
With the growing importance people are placing on environmental protection and enhancement, and the increasing attention the government is paying to environmental concerns, Youth Corps officials are confident there will be another program this summer. After all, there's a lot of work out there that's yet to be done.
The habitat surveys themselves are just an ongoing thing. Habitat enhancement and assessment and restocking and, the whole thing. It's just a never-ending deal. There's more than they'll ever get done, obviously. We've been, ruining and polluting this planet now for...
There's a lot of raptors here today.
They are also looking for a very different kind of wildlife, the kind that hunts illegally. Poachers, wildlife violators. They hunt waterfowl out of season, without proper licenses, or exceed federally and provincially set bag limits. Through the mist, we see the silhouettes of 2 hunters in the marsh. They've probably been here since 4 o'clock this morning, watching and waiting for ducks to come and join their bobbing decoys.
Morning, boys. Hate to push you out like that, but federal game officers will just check your licenses and your tags. Well, what have you got there this morning? You got a mallard hen?
Yeah, one mallard hen.
The game officers want to let the hunters know they mean business, but they do it with a sense of humor.
It says there, if you don't fill that in, it's not a valid hunting license. That's what it says. Yeah, that's what it says. You got $100 you don't need? Oh, good. That's a $100 pen. You just saved yourself $100 there, buddy. So that just prohibits you from sharing that with someone else.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the hunters that we check are law-abiding citizens and are committed to waterfowl hunting and committed to waterfowls. So.
The density of hunting in this region, there's a lot of people that live here, there's a lot of hunters that hunt here. And you're going to, of course, it takes only a few of those individuals to give the rest a bad name. Everyone gets painted with the black brush. And what we have here is violations that do occur. A lot of that is through frustration. A lot of hunters are going out, they're getting very few birds. The guys we spoke to today, they got 2 ducks, 1 duck. I mean, no one is ever limited out. They're allowed 8 here a day. You have to stop hunting 1/2 hour after sunset. That's when the birds start to fly here. And of course, they extend the hunting hour illegally, and that's when the violations occur.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. The average cost of a house in 1915 was $3,200, and the original Model T rolled off the line to the tune of $850. But the average male worker only made $687 a year. Let us return to the archives as conservation officers share how some finds are stuck in 1916.
In 1988, over 115,000 ducks were legally shot. Game officers estimate the same number were taken illegally. Most of BC's waterfowl are not endangered, but poaching puts unnecessary pressure on the stocks. And poaching also impacts wildlife conservation and management because the Ministry of Environment gets a major portion of its funding through hunting licenses. What's even more frustrating for game officers is that when poachers are caught, the penalties are small.
The Magotteaux Convention Act, the maximum fine is only $300 for the public. And yeah, what's $300 in 1916 when the act came out was a lot of money.
And it hasn't been updated since then?
It has not been updated. No, it has not. And a lot of people just accept a fine of $300 or $150, $125 is about average. They just accept that. $125 is less than 1 day's wages. But like I say, in 1916, $300 was probably closer to a year's wages.
An anonymous tip led to the arrest and conviction of this man. His name is Adelcio Mota. His nickname is Butcher of the North. He lives in Vancouver, but he's poached animals all over the province. He is believed to have illegally slaughtered hundreds of animals in the past 2 years, often taking only the trophy head and leaving the rest of the carcass behind. These are a few of the animals Mota killed and then mounted himself. This video was taken last spring when conservation officers raided his home. His collection includes this Arctic wolf, this mountain goat, a wolverine, and many, many more. In total, he was charged with 115 counts of poaching. He pleaded guilty to 29. In this case, the court did come down hard. He was fined $10,000, 2 months in jail, and was put on 3 years probation, prohibiting him from hunting or carrying a firearm.
I'm sure there are other poachers, but Mr. Mota, in terms of the number of animals he shot and his complete disregard for anything that resembled a hunting regulation or a hunting law, his actions are unprecedented in British Columbia court history, certainly.
They have long been used to symbolize freedom, strength, and beauty. And when you see bald eagles in the wild, it's easy to see why. From November to February, over 800 eagles come to the Harrison Flats to winter and feed on spawned salmon. These magnificent birds are protected by law, but it's not enough to protect them from poachers.
Now spread its wings. That gives you a good idea about how wide the wingspan is.
It's a magnificent bird.
It's a magnificent bird, all right.
This bird was shot by poachers, but it managed to fly far enough away to avoid capture before it died. It's unclear how many of BC's 15,000 eagles are killed each year. They are not endangered here, but they are extinct in all but 5 U.S. states. So poachers risk the $5,000 fine and 6 months in jail.
It was laying on a log, and it appears to have been shot. Blood is coming out of its beak. It's used very much for headdresses, for instance, Indian headdresses. And apparently they're made in the United States, and they're sold for up to about $10,000 a piece, I've heard.
Last year, 3 carcasses were found like this. The beaks cut off to be ground into Asian medicinal powder, its wings and feathers taken for headdresses, and its feet and talons cut off for necklaces. A sad end to one of nature's proudest creatures. At Monaco's Wildlife Shelter in Surrey, there are 9 bald eagles currently getting care. They have been brought here from all over the province. One eagle originated near Mount St. Helens in Washington, where it was banded by wildlife officers. 8 of these birds have been shot by poachers. Owner Monica Toksdorf says the number of eagles being shot every year is rising. She is no longer surprised by it.
Well, approximately 10 years ago I would have been, because when we started getting bald eagles more and more, and with that the shot bald eagles, yes. Now you get used to it, because 99% of all bald eagles that come into our care come here because they've been shot. There's just absolutely no way that somebody could claim that he maybe was aiming at a duck and thought this was a duck or a goose or whatever, because an eagle looks like an eagle and nothing else.
One of the biggest problems with trying to police poaching is manpower. There are only a handful of provincial conservation officers assigned to patrol a huge section of the Fraser Valley. RCMP and federal wildlife officers are called in on seizures, but what is needed is more people on a regular basis. That's where Ernie Bergeron comes in. He and several hundred Chilliwack area residents are waging a war on poachers.
We're concerned that people are coming up here and poaching. You know, poachers, as far as we are concerned, are thieves, and they're stealing right out of our backyard, and we're not going to put up with it. So basically what the Fish and Game Club is going to be doing is we're involved with the Observe, Record, Report program, where we're going to have our 450 members, that's all our members, out looking and keeping an eye out for these poachers, and we'll go out of our way to turn them in.
Eagles have probably been coming to the Lower Mainland for thousands of years, and now we must all take a part in protecting them so they will continue to come back. For every eagle taken by a poacher is one stolen from the rest of us.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Trained in Paris, Philippe Rapiel came to Canada in the mid-1970s, settling in Vancouver, where he is now an instructor at the Emily Carr Institute of Art. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives. He is joined by fellow artist and judge at a terrace art show.
The only thing I can say is that definitely people are trying to deal with the landscape, and of course, I mean, it's all around here, so it's a good thing to be dealing with, and it's definitely beautiful around here. So I think it's good that some people are paying attention to it.
Fellow judge Vicky Marshall agrees with Philippe that good art is not necessarily a product of time or technique.
We want integrity. We want to see the artist's intent in the work. If it's there, those are the pieces that we would judge to be better pieces of art. Sometimes the technical ability is just there and you can't ignore it, but that's not the predominant thing, I don't think. I don't think that's what really good art is about.
The annual juried art shows held across the province are funded by lottery grants.
Well, it's a gathering of all the arts. It's the counterpart of the BC Winter and Summer Games.
Terra Show coordinator Barbara Kenny says any Northwest artist can compete. There's no restriction on kind of art or age of artist.
As long as it's original. Anything.
That'd be nice too. Look at the size of the windows.
I wonder where it is.
Vicky and Philip spend the day looking over the entries to determine which pieces illustrate the kind of talent that deserves recognition.
No, it's too busy. And the shadows in the snow are gorgeous. You know, the shadows in the soft snow.
With the judging over, 8 of the entries have received the blue sticker of approval. This piece, entitled Shaman and Child, captured the interest of both judges almost immediately.
I don't know what he was trying to get at exactly, but it didn't matter. It was visually kind of fascinating. It's definitely a wood that he found around, and it has been edged in the weather, by the weather, and so that add a type of poetic element to the piece, I would say. And also the quality of those grays, it's quite nice. It's like a piece of old house. But I think it is important because it is part of, I guess, our heritage here in British Columbia. All that wood, so I mean we might as well do something with it.
A Prince Rupert artist painted this watercolor dock scene that Judge Vicky Marshall was drawn to.
Wonderful use of colour. I'm into colour. I love colour, and the fact that it's a watercolour and the light quality in it is lovely. And it's not a sensational scene or anything, but it's just, to me, the characters are very real, and if they saw it, they'd think so too. You know, I love the way she treated the subject.
The two spent considerable time discussing this oil painting. Both felt the artist had spent hours walking along the beach, examining the driftwood, and enjoying the antics of her companion.
Yeah, it makes me think as if she's really studied the dog. My only argument with it would have been those trees in the background, which just, there's not the same paint handling as is happening in the rest of the painting. You know, there's not the same sculptural element, and it could have been bettered with just a horizontal band of colour. You know, you'd read them as trees.
Both judges commented on the lack of Native artwork in the show. Coordinator Barbara Kenny says invitations were sent to Native communities, but she doesn't know why the response was so poor. Philippe had been hoping to see more of the famed West Coast Indian sculpture and painting.
I saw some in Paris when I lived there, in museums, West Coast Indian work, but I couldn't really relate to it because I didn't know the land. I mean, the work is so close to the land here, and this land is so beautiful. How can I understand what the work was about? And being living in a big city, I couldn't really understand. And also there is all the mythology involved. Now that I have studied it a bit more here, I understand much more what it's about.
There were several photographs in the exhibit, at least one of which will go on to the festival in Saanich. But Vicky Marshall says it takes more than a beautiful snapshot to be considered art. She says many photographs are exceptional, but they're not art.
We decided that it was just too predictable, you know, it's too pretty, it looks too much like a Christmas card. You know, it's like, you know, it's not to say that it's not a nice photograph, but I think art and photography should go beyond being a nice photograph.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind to his heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.